For 15 years, she was the steady hand and the beating heart of America's favorite little family. We watched her navigate raising 4 children, managing a chaotic household, and dealing with a husband whose big dreams often seemed to overshadow her reality. For 15 years, we thought we knew Amy Roloff. We thought we understood the dynamic, the indecisive wife, and the visionary husband. But tonight, everything we thought we knew about Roloff Farms, about the divorce, and about the legacy of this show is about to be rewritten. Tonight, Amy Roloff is finally silent no more. In a raw, unprecedented, and emotional confession that insiders are already calling the most explosive television event of the decade, Amy is stepping into the light. She is sitting down for her first and only unfiltered interview since the scandal that effectively destroyed her family unit. And she is revealing a secret she has held close to her chest for over a decade. According to exclusive new reports and theories swirling around the production, Amy isn't just talking about a marriage that fell apart. She is talking about a calculated, systematic betrayal that started years before the cameras ever caught a whiff of trouble. She reveals that the theft, the lies, and the gaslighting were not a surprise to her. She saw it all. Tonight, we are going to walk you through the story of the day she found the hidden ledger, the terrifying night she finally confronted Matt about his relationship with Caryn, and the heartbreaking reason she chose to suffer in silence while the world criticized her for being bitter. This is the interview Matt Roloff never wanted you to see, and it paints a picture of a woman who wasn't indecisive, but who was trapped in a high-stakes game of survival. We are uncovering the fake wedding theories, the financial discrepancies, and the missing money that changed everything. But before we dive into the dark details of the hidden ledger and the secret meetings that shattered the Roloff dynasty, I need you to do me a massive favor. If you have been following the saga and you want to support Amy as she finally speaks her truth, please hit that like button right now. It helps us get this video out to more fans who deserve to know the real story. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to LPBW Update and turn on those notifications. We are the only channel brave enough to dig into the insider reports and the theories that the network tries to bury. You do not want to miss our coverage of the fallout from this interview. Now, let's get into the confession that is changing everything. The setting for this revelation is stark, intimate, and undeniably heavy. Picture a professionally lit studio, the kind used for the most serious of investigative journalism pieces like a Dateline special or a 2020 exclusive. Opposite Amy sits a compassionate interviewer, someone with the gravity of a Robin Roberts or Hoda Kotb, a person who knows how to navigate the waters of trauma without being exploitative. There is a box of tissues on the table between them, a subtle signal that what we are about to hear is not just gossip, but deep, processed pain. Amy looks different here. She isn't the frantic mother we saw in the early seasons, nor is she the angry ex-wife from the later years. She looks resolved. She looks like someone who has walked through fire and is finally ready to show her burns. The interview begins not with the divorce, but with a question that cuts straight to the core of the mystery. The interviewer leans in and asks, "Looking back, Amy, beyond the arguments and the tension we saw on screen, what was the first red flag? When did you know it wasn't just a bad patch in the marriage, but something more sinister?" Amy takes a deep breath, and for the first time, she drops the bomb that rewrites the timeline of the entire show. She confesses that her suspicion didn't start when Caryn became the farm manager. It didn't start when Matt began spending more time away. She reveals that the first crack in the foundation appeared way back in 2010. This is massive because if you look back at the footage from that era, the narrative was strictly about Matt's big ideas versus Amy's caution. But Amy reveals that her caution wasn't about personality differences. It was about a discovery she made in Matt's home office. A discovery that we are now hearing involved a separate hidden ledger. According to Amy's emotional recounting, it was a random Tuesday. Matt was out of town attending a conference, and she was looking for a specific tax document for the kids' schooling. In a drawer that was usually locked but had been carelessly left slightly ajar, she found a black notebook. It wasn't the official farm accounting book kept by their CPA. It was a handwritten log of cash-only transactions from the pumpkin patch private tours. Amy tells the interviewer, with tears welling in her eyes, that as she turned the pages, she realized the numbers didn't add up. We are talking about tens of thousands of dollars. Money that was coming in from the public, handed over in cash during the busiest weekends of the year, and simply vanishing. It never made it into the joint bank accounts. It never appeared on the official profit and loss statements. This is where the theory of financial infidelity really takes root. For years, fans have speculated about how the farm's finances were actually handled, and now Amy is confirming our worst fears. She describes the sinking feeling in her gut, the cold wash of realization that her partner, the man she built this life with, was siphoning resources away from the family pot. But the tragedy isn't just the money, it's what happened next. This is the inciting incident of her long silence. Amy details the confrontation that happened when Matt returned. She didn't wait. She didn't strategize. She was hurt and confused, and she laid the notebook on the kitchen table. She asked him simply, "What is this?" And this is where the narrative shifts from simple greed to psychological manipulation. Amy describes how Matt didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He attacked. He laughed at her. He told her she was financially illiterate. He told her she was paranoid and that she didn't understand how business write-offs and petty cash worked. He spun a web of complex jargon, using his reputation as the business genius to make her feel small, stupid, and crazy. "I started to believe him," Amy confesses to the interviewer, her voice trembling. "He made me feel like I was the villain for even asking. He told me that if I brought this up to anyone else, I would ruin the brand, I would ruin the show, and I would take food out of our children's mouths. He weaponized my love for the kids against me." This revelation completely reframes years of on-screen behavior. We all remember the scenes where Amy seemed hesitant to sign papers or reluctant to agree to Matt's new expansions. At the time, the show's editing made her look like a wet blanket, a woman who didn't support her husband's vision. But with this new context, we can see that she wasn't being negative. She was being cautious because she knew deep down that the numbers were a lie. She was trying to pump the brakes on a vehicle she suspected was being driven off a cliff. She wasn't indecisive. She was terrified. She was living with the secret knowledge that the man across the dinner table was gaslighting her about their own livelihood. As the interview progresses, the interviewer presses deeper. "So you stayed silent about the money. You let him convince you that you were wrong. But money is one thing. When did you realize that the betrayal wasn't just financial? When did you realize there was another person involved?" This brings us to the segment of the interview that is bound to cause the most shockwaves regarding Matt and Caryn Chandler. Matt has insisted for years, and the show has tried very hard to maintain this timeline, that his relationship with Caryn only became romantic after he and Amy had separated. They have sold us the story of a professional relationship that blossomed into love only after the marriage was rightfully over. Amy, shaking her head slowly, with a look of absolute devastation, calls this the biggest lie of all. "They were a team," she whispers, the pain evident in every syllable. "They were a team long before the divorce papers were even drafted." Amy opens up about the dynamic that shifted on the farm. She talks about how Caryn, who started as a farm employee, slowly began to occupy spaces that were reserved for the wife. It wasn't just about intimate touching or obvious affairs. It was about the transfer of power. Amy describes walking into rooms and the conversation stopping. She describes Matt sharing business details, future plans, and yes, financial secrets with Caryn that he refused to share with Amy. He stole my farm, Amy says, looking directly into the camera lens, but she stole my husband first, and the worst part was they made me feel like I was the crazy jealous wife for noticing. There are theories, which we have discussed on this channel before, that suggest Caryn was actually aware of the off-the-books ledger that Amy found. Some insiders speculate that Caryn's rapid rise to farm manager wasn't just about her organizational skills, but about her willingness to help Matt manage these side streams of income that Amy wasn't privy to. Amy alludes to this in the interview. She mentions that trips were taken, business trips to Arizona or conventions, where Matt and Caryn would go together, leaving Amy behind to run the house. Matt would claim he needed his manager. Amy now realizes those were not business trips. They were a test run for the life Matt was planning to build without her. The emotional weight of this betrayal is heavy. Amy describes the isolation of those years. Imagine being in a house full of cameras, surrounded by production crews, smiling for the millions of people watching, while knowing that your husband and his employee have a secret language, a secret world, and perhaps a secret bank account that you are locked out of. Amy admits that this is why she seems so angry in the later seasons. It wasn't bitterness over nothing. It was the rage of a woman who was being replaced in her own life, piece by piece, dollar by dollar, decision by decision. She talks about a specific incident, a holiday party where she saw them exchange a look. It wasn't a flirtatious look, it was a look of complicity. A look that said, "We know something she doesn't." Amy says that moment hurt more than the divorce itself. It was the realization that she was the outsider in her own marriage. The narrative that Matt was the long-suffering husband dealing with a messy wife is completely dismantled here. Instead, we see a calculated effort to push Amy out, to make her feel so unstable and so unloved that she would eventually just give up. But why did she stay? Why, if she found the ledger in 2010 and suspected the affair shortly after, did she wait years to pull the plug? Why did she endure the humiliation of the indecisive edit? The answer, as Amy reveals in the next segment of this bombshell interview, is heartbreakingly simple. And it revolves around the four people she loves more than anything in the world: Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob. The interviewer leans forward, her expression soft but probing, asking the question that has plagued the comment sections of this show for a decade. If you knew, Amy, if you found the ledger in 2010, if you saw the trips, if you felt the betrayal, why did you stay? Why did you endure the cameras capturing your misery? Why didn't you flip the table and expose him? Right then and there, the answer Amy gives is perhaps the most gut-wrenching moment of the entire special. She doesn't talk about money. She doesn't talk about the contract with TLC. She talks about Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob. Amy explains that she was acutely aware of what a War of the Roses style divorce would do to her family. She knew Matt. She knew that if she filed for a contentious divorce based on fraud and adultery, he would not go quietly. She describes a fear that paralyzed her, the fear that Matt would scorch the earth. She believed that if she accused him publicly, he would destroy the farm, destroy the brand, and ultimately destroy the children's relationship with their father. She tells the interviewer, "I knew that if I pulled that thread, the whole sweater would unravel and my kids would be the ones left in the cold. So I stayed. I played the part. I smiled for the cameras when I wanted to scream. I became the villain in the public eye so that their father could remain a hero in theirs." This revelation completely transforms how we must watch the middle seasons of Little People, Big World. Remember the agonizing episodes regarding the big house? Remember how Matt wanted to sell or move and Amy seemed paralyzed, unable to make a decision, dragging her feet for episode after episode? We all yelled at our screens, begging her to just make up her mind. But Amy now reveals that her indecisiveness was not about the house. It wasn't about clinging to memories. It was a stall tactic. It was a desperate survival strategy. According to this new narrative, Amy was terrified that if she signed the papers to leave the big house too quickly, she would lose the only leverage she had left to ensure her children got their fair share. She wasn't fighting for the house. She was fighting for the inheritance she suspected Matt was trying to liquidate. She admits that during those negotiations, she was secretly trying to untangle the finances, trying to figure out where the money had gone, and trying to secure a future for the twins and Jacob and Molly before she let go of the property. Every time she said, "I don't know," on camera, she was actually saying, "I don't trust you," to Matt off camera. She was holding the line, a lone gatekeeper trying to prevent the complete liquidation of the family legacy before the truth could come out. Amy describes the immense pressure she felt from the network, from the fans, and from Matt, who was painting her as the obstacle to progress. "They called me stubborn," she says, wiping away a tear. "They called me bitter, but I wasn't stubborn. I was a mother standing in the doorway, refusing to let the wolf in, even though the wolf was already inside the house." She reveals that she swallowed her pride and let the world think she was the difficult one, because the alternative, telling the world that America's dad was financially abusing her, would have been a nuclear option she wasn't ready to deploy. She sacrificed her reputation to save her family's stability. But you can only tread water for so long before you drown. And Amy admits she was drowning. She was losing her sense of self, her confidence, and her voice. She had been gaslit for so long that she truly began to believe she was incapable of understanding the business, that she was just a mom who should stick to the kitchen while the visionary handled the real work. That is, until the timeline shifts to the arrival of Marek. This brings us to the most triumphant arc of the interview, the turning point. When the interviewer brings up Chris, Amy's entire demeanor changes. The tension in her shoulders drops. A genuine smile breaks through the tears. She calls Chris her savior, but not in the romantic fairy tale sense. She calls him her reality check. Amy reveals that for the first time in decades, she had someone in her corner who didn't dismiss her intuition. When she finally opened up to Chris about her suspicions, about the missing money, the secret meetings, the gaslighting regarding the farm's value, she expected him to tell her to move on. She expected him to say, "That's in the past." But Chris didn't do that. Chris, with his background in real estate and his own sharp business acumen, looked at her and said, "The words that changed everything. You're not crazy. Let's find the proof." This confirms a theory that many of us in the LPBW community have held for a long time. Marek is the one who helped Amy audit the past. Amy describes late nights where Chris would help her go through old documents she had managed to save. He helped her understand the real estate valuations that Matt had used to buy her out. He pointed out discrepancies that she, in her emotional state, had missed. He validated her anger. He told her, "Amy, this wasn't a business deal. This was a robbery." She describes a specific moment by official sources, but detailed vividly in this interview, where Chris sat down with her and did the math on the North Side sale. He showed her exactly how undervalued her portion was and how the narrative Matt spun about the kids taking over was mathematically impossible based on the debt load Matt had placed on the property. It was Chris who gave her the courage to stop feeling guilty. Matt had spent years training Amy to feel guilty for holding him back. But Chris showed her that she wasn't holding him back. She was being held up. "He gave me my voice back," Amy tells the camera. "Matt tried to break me. He tried to make me feel small. But Chris reminded me that I helped build that farm. I planted those seeds, I raised those kids, and I deserved the truth. This segment of the interview casts Chris Marek in a completely new light. He isn't just the new husband or the guy who weirdly wants to be friends with Matt. Amy explains that Chris's friendliness with Matt, which has baffled viewers for seasons, is actually a strategy. It's a way to keep your enemies close. Amy hints that Chris understands exactly who Matt is, and his cordial behavior is a way to protect Amy, to keep the peace, and to ensure they always have eyes on what Matt is doing next. It's not a bromance, it's a tactical alliance. Chris is the shield that allows Amy to finally breathe. And now, with the strength she found through Chris and the clarity of hindsight, Amy is ready to deliver the message she has been holding back for 15 years. The interviewer prepares for the final segment, the direct address. The atmosphere in the studio shifts from investigative to almost judicial. Amy turns her body away from the interviewer and looks directly into the lens of the camera. This is the moment the network has been teasing in the promos. This is the moment where the silence is officially broken. She isn't yelling. She isn't screaming. She is deadly calm. She speaks to the man she shared a bed with for nearly 30 years, and her words are precise and cutting. "I forgive you," she starts, and for a second, you think she's going to let him off the hook. But she continues, "I forgive you, not for you, but for me. I am letting go of the anger because I refuse to let you rent space in my head anymore. You took my past. You took a significant chunk of my financial future, but you will not take my peace." But then the tone hardens. "But forgiveness and consequences are two different things, Matt. You have to face what you did. You have to look in the mirror and know that the empire you have now, the big house you are building, the legacy you talk so much about, it's all built on a foundation of sand. You built it by stepping on the people who held the ladder for you." And then she addresses Caryn. This is the part that insiders say had the crew on set holding their breath. Amy doesn't use insults. She doesn't call her names. She simply offers a warning delivered with the wisdom of a woman who has been exactly where Caryn is sitting now. "And to Caryn," Amy says, her voice steady, "I just hope you realize that what you build on a foundation of lies will eventually crumble. If he did it to me, the mother of his children, the woman who started with him in a beat-up car with nothing, do you really think you're safe? The ledger I found wasn't the first one, and it won't be the last. Good luck." The interview doesn't end there, though. The interviewer, sensing that Amy has finally unloaded the burden, asks about the future. But the answers Amy gives regarding the current state of the farm and the fake wedding rumors circulating about Matt and Caryn suggest that this story is far from over. There are hints that legal action might not be entirely off the table, or at the very least, a reckoning within the family that will play out in a way TLC never anticipated. That silence you hear ringing in your ears right now, that is the sound of the entire narrative of Little People, Big World crumbling to the ground. Amy Roloff's warning to Caryn Chandler isn't just a moment of reality TV drama. It is a prophecy rooted in decades of experience. When Amy says, "Good luck," she isn't wishing her well. She is telling her that the vacancy she filled comes with a heavy price tag, one that involves secrecy, manipulation, and a ledger that never quite balances. This interview has fundamentally changed the game, and now we need to talk about the massive elephant in the room that this confession has illuminated: the stalled wedding of Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler. For months, we have been reporting on the rumors, the delays, and the strange lack of enthusiasm surrounding Matt and Caryn's nuptials. On the show, they play it off as waiting for the house to be finished or waiting for the right time. But Amy's confession about the hidden money and the cash-only schemes provides a much darker and frankly more believable explanation. This brings us to the fake wedding theory that is currently setting the message boards on fire. If what Amy says is true, that Matt has been hiding assets and operating off the books since 2000, then a legal marriage to Caryn becomes a massive liability. Think about it. If Matt marries Caryn, his assets become commingled again. If he brings her legally into his fold, he opens himself up to the kind of scrutiny he has spent a lifetime avoiding. Insider reports that have been circulating, which now make perfect sense in light of this interview, suggest that the reason the wedding hasn't happened is that Matt is refusing to sign a marriage license without an ironclad prenuptial agreement that protects not just his current assets, but his historical business dealings. The theory goes even deeper. Some sources speculate that the engagement itself is merely a storyline for the show, a fake wedding plot devised to keep the ratings up and to present a united front to the audience, while behind the scenes, there is absolutely no intention of legally binding themselves to one another. Amy's interview supports this. She painted a picture of Matt as a man who prioritizes the image of success and family over the reality of it. An engagement looks good on camera. A wedding, however, involves lawyers, forensic accountants, and full financial disclosure. 3 things Matt Roloff seems to be terrified of. Amy's revelation that Caryn was a team with Matt long before the divorce also complicates this fake wedding narrative. If Caryn knows where the bodies are buried, so to speak, if she was part of the cash-only tours and the side deals, then she holds leverage. But leverage works both ways. Matt knows that she knows. This creates a relationship based not on trust, but on mutually assured destruction. They are stuck together. Amy escaped because she was willing to lose the farm to save her soul. Caryn, however, bought into the farm, and now she might be realizing that she purchased a golden cage. This interview also forces us to completely reevaluate the estrangement of the Roloff children, particularly Zach and Tori. When Zach famously said on camera, "My dad is manipulating the narrative," many viewers thought he was just being a brat about the farm deal. But now we owe Zach an apology. Amy's confession confirms that the kids weren't just mad about a price tag. They were mad because they saw the same ledger Amy did. They saw the deception. It is highly probable that Zach's departure from the show and the farm wasn't a negotiation tactic. It was a moral stance. He didn't want to be part of an empire built on the gaslighting of his mother. When Amy says she stayed for the kids, she implies that once the kids knew the truth, the jig was up. The disintegration of the Roloff family unit wasn't a slow drift. It was an explosion caused by the truth finally coming to light. The indecisive Amy we watched for years was actually a mother trying to shield her children from the reality that their father was prioritizing profit over people. So, where does this leave the show? Can Little People, Big World even continue after this? How can we watch Matt give a tour of the farm now, knowing that there might be a stack of cash in his pocket that won't be reported? How can we watch him preach about legacy when Amy has just revealed that the legacy was built on her silence? The show has always been about a family overcoming the odds, but now it feels like a tragedy about a family being consumed by greed. The farm, once a symbol of joy and pumpkins and family gatherings, now looks like a movie set, a hollow facade where everyone is playing a role to keep the checks clearing. Amy Roloff, however, has emerged from this interview not as a victim, but as the ultimate survivor. She has reclaimed her narrative. She has reframed her bitterness as righteous anger. She has reframed her hesitation as protective caution. She has proven that while Matt may have the land, she has the truth. And in the court of public opinion, the truth is worth more than any acre of pumpkin patch. She is happy. She is married to a man who respects her intelligence. She has her relationship with her children. She won. It took 15 years, a painful divorce, and this landmark interview, but Amy Roloff has finally won. This story is far from over. The fallout from this broadcast is going to be massive. We expect Matt to release a statement denying everything, calling Amy delusional or confused, just as he did in the marriage. We expect Caryn to play the victim, but the damage is done. The veil has been lifted. We have seen the ledger, metaphorically speaking, and we can never unsee it. Now, I need to hear from you. This is the most important part of our coverage because this community is the heartbeat of the show. Do you believe Amy's confession? Do you think there was a secret ledger and a financial betrayal that went on for years? And does this explain why the wedding between Matt and Caryn seems to be on permanent hold? Are they trapped in a fake engagement to protect their secrets? Let me know your theories in the comments below. I will be reading every single one of them and pinning the best theories about the fake wedding. If you felt vindicated for Amy while listening to this, please hit that like button. It sends a message that we support the truth. And do not forget to subscribe to LPBW Update. We are already digging into the public property records to see if there is any evidence of the side deals Amy mentioned. And you do not want to miss our next video where we might just have the receipts. Amy Roloff stayed silent for 15 years to protect her family. Today, she spoke up to protect herself. And we are listening. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next update.